Alright, I just came back from my lovely Japan trip, and here is my experiences that I found traveling with my mother in Japan, as well as my own solo travel in Europe last year. And I want to share my experience between both Japan and Europe as a Singaporean. And I'm going to compare basically the 5 points in Japan and in Europe as well. Firstly is the ease of planning. Second of all is the transport. Third of all is how friendly the people are. Fourth of all is the language barrier. And fifth of all is how safe Japan, how safe is Europe. All right, first of all is basically ease of planning. How do I feel between Japan and Europe? So when I was planning my Europe trip last year, 2025, I actually planned both trips around the same time. It took me 5 months to plan both trips. When I went to Europe, it took me more planning. There are many different cultures. Like I went to London, I went to Paris, and I went to Rome. So there are three different cultures. There's a culture in England, there's a culture in France, and there's a culture in Rome. And they have three very different transport systems, and it requires more planning. So this is unlike Japan. Japan is, I didn't really plan too much with Japan. So I spent about the same time, 5 months of planning. It was so easy because Japan is so easy to travel. You don't need that much planning. You just need to have a Suica card and a bank account. Everything is so easy in Japan. I didn't really plan so much and I still managed to survive over there. You just need to know some basic Japanese as compared to the Europe, which you need to know English, French, Italian, but in Japan, it's just Japanese. My planning for Japan wasn't as detailed as in Europe, but yet I still managed to survive quite well in Japan. So ease of planning, Japan is so much more easier to plan than Europe. All right, the second thing is the language barrier that I found in both Japan and in Europe. People in Japan, they understand that not everybody speaks Japanese, and they actually make an effort to speak English, even though it's a broken English. But there's a magic word that you need to say in Japan, and that word is sumimasen, or excuse me. The moment you say that word, Japanese people become very friendly to you. This is unlike in Europe, where I actually can speak a bit of French. And when I tried to speak French to them, they didn't want to speak French. So in England, France, and Italy, they're not as friendly, but it's very similar. You just need to say the magic word. In France is bonjour, in Italy is ciao or buongiorno, and then just speak English to them. Don't attempt to speak their language to them because most of them can speak English and they're willing to talk to you. So that is a ease of language. I find that in Europe they are much more proficient in English as compared to Japan. Japan and Japanese people are not so proficient in English, but they'll still make an attempt to speak English to you, and they're very, very friendly. All right, the next thing is transport. Transport in Japan relies around trains. Trains always come on time. If you're in the big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, you can rely solely on the train. The trains are amazing. They are always on time. They are fast. The train drivers drive like F1 cars. You can rely solely on the train. But this is unlike Europe where it depends on each city. For example, London, you can rely on the tube as well as their buses. France is their metro, and Rome, public transport is garbage in Rome, let me be honest. But as compared to Europe and Japan, Japan always wins by public transport. Japanese public transport is just amazing. So I did try an Uber in Japan, and it's so much more expensive. I think it's about like 4,000 yen, 30 plus dollars. As a tourist, public transport in Japan is so much more better. All right, the next thing is safety. Again, Japan beats heads on. Like you feel so safe in Japan. And here's the thing about Japan, as compared to lovely Singapore over here. Singapore's safety is enforced by its law and order. So you can see a lot of security cameras. There's a police presence, and there's a very strict law over here. But in Japan, it's safe because the people make an effort to be safe, to be well mannered. It is safe in general, but there's a bit of instances where it's not so safe. So me and my mom was traveling back to the hotel in Tokyo, and we met this drunk person. He was there shouting and stuff like that. You don't see that here in lovely Singapore, but in Japan it does happen. You do meet drunkards sometimes, and you got to be a bit careful. Me and my mom were like so afraid about that drunk guy in Tokyo. But overall, Japan is so safe. You don't need to think about pickpockets while you're in the train. When I was in Europe, half of the time I was thinking whether my thing is gonna get robbed or not. I had like a neck wallet. I had my iPhone always connected to me. It's physically connected to me through like a band. I was thinking about my belongings every single time I was in Europe. So I wasn't feeling so safe in Europe. Even at night, I don't dare to go out at night in Europe. I was afraid of getting mugged and stabbed. In Japan, very, very safe. Safe like Singapore. All right. Lastly is friendliness. How do I find Japanese people and how do I find European people friendly? Of course, Japan wins hands on. Japan people are so friendly. It was my last day in Japan. I was heading to Kansai Airport at Osaka. I was heading back to Singapore. And me and my mum, we were stuck at the train station. We have no idea how to head to Kansai Airport. And we were like looking around at the signs. We were thinking like, how do we get to the correct train station? And then a Japanese lady was so helpful, looked at us and was like, where are you guys going? So we didn't ask her for help. She came to us and she helped us. And she was willing to lead us all the way to the train station where we needed to go to Kansai Airport in Osaka. And she was so friendly. This is unlike Europe where you need a lot of planning. Don't expect people to help you in Europe. If you need help, you go up to people and you ask them for help. But otherwise, you need so much planning. Generally, when I was in Europe, also they're not so friendly, to be honest, especially as an Asian. I did try to speak a bit of French when I was in France, and the waiter was so pissed off at me. She was quite angry at me. Yeah, I still have to give her a tip because that's part of their culture in Europe. The moment I learned to just say bonjour and a simple French or Italian and then switch back to English, and then the Europeans were so much more friendly towards me. So that's the difference between Japan and Europe. Japanese people are super friendly. I'm not saying that all Europeans are unfriendly, but that was my experience as a tourist back in Europe. Alright, don't get me wrong about Europe. I love Europe. Europe is still my most favorite trip. I went there alone. It was my first true solo trip. I had to learn everything myself. Although I did say many times in the video where I find Japan to be so much better, but at the same time, having to learn to do so many things by yourself in Europe really did teach me the importance of independence, and it is still my favorite trip even though there's so many challenges in Europe. Alright, so that was my experience in Japan as well as in Europe. I am so happy to be back in lovely Singapore. I've always loved this country. At the same time, it's also important to travel out and not get stuck in Singapore. And yeah, I do hope to make more videos. Do remember to like and subscribe and also follow me on my socials as well. Bye bye.